Hello and welcome back to XVA Bibles. We're going to be continuing on my series on how to rebind a Bible from start to finish. And I realize it's been a while since I've recorded one of these. I've just been very busy with orders and with some traveling that I've been doing with my family. So I apologize for that, but I'm dedicated to finishing this series. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with rebinding a CSB Personal Reference Bible in Navy Horween Chromexcel. So here, this is where we're currently at. I have done all the skiving, all of the spine work, and now we need to do a little bit of boring stuff. So we need to work on the liner. So we need to round the corners of the liner and then mark and cut the slot for our text block. So since I made this cover, I've actually done several Bibles. I think I've done like 4 to 6 Bibles since I started this project from the very beginning. I've done a bunch since I started this project, and I found a better way to mark and cut the liner leather. And that is essentially using this piece of material here, this Craftex, as a stencil for marking the slot where my text block should go, because this piece of Craftex right here, if you remember back, is exactly the width of our spine plus like just a little bit extra, maybe like 1/16 per side. The exact same height as our text block, just a little bit wider, but that amount of width doesn't impact this. So essentially this piece of material right here is exactly the width of our text block. So it makes sense to use this piece of material to trace on your liner where your text block is going to sit. So obviously I didn't do that on this one because I didn't think of that, but I have right here off camera, I did trace, I did create a second piece of Craftex that's the exact same size as this piece, and we're going to pretend as if I had this bright idea way back when. So we're going to go ahead and work here some with our liner. So first thing we need to do here is find the center line of our liner. And the way I do that is with just a little strip of paper. So obviously you could measure this and divide by 2. But if you do that, you always have the risk of going down into the 30 seconds fraction. And that's kind of a pain to work in. So I've been, finding the center line this way for a while, and it has worked well for me. Realize I had my fan on in the background. That is very unprofessional. Very unprofessional recording environment. But let's see. And you might be able to hear my kids in the background, of course. I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old who's almost a 2-year-old. And they are just the cutest. And my son David, who is 3, he's like, "Dada, you going to work on a Bible?" And we listen to the Donut Man, as they're driving about around town with with my wife, and they listen to that song. I like the Bible, that one, the old classic. And my 1.5-year-old, who can only say like 2-word sentences, he his way of singing that song is, Bible, do it, Bible, do it. That's kind of his way of singing the I like the Bible, because I read it and I do it. I think that's the line. But he'll just say, Bible, do it. Pretty cute. All right, here I'm just finding the center line of the craft text, my craft text stencil. And I have started doing this. I did this since this Horween Chromexcel cover, and it has been a great thing. So this will help. This center line in the craft text will help us align this little stencil on the leather. So we'll just align this right here and then trace around it. So I need to consult my notes because I can't remember exactly how much yap we designated for this. So just going back through here. Man, it was a long, did I miss it? BSB, bullet journal, NASB diadem. Okay, here we go. 3/16, 11/16. Yeah, so I did 11/16 as my total yap add, which will end up being 11/32 for my yap. So here we need to measure our yap, figure out our yap measurement here and here, so that we can perfectly position this here in order to trace around it. Alrighty, so this. So this little piece of craft text here just needs to be exactly in the middle, like so. And I just have started marking this here and here, 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 here. I do it everywhere. So now we have like a rectangular spot here for our cuts. So we can go ahead and start cutting this liner here. So get my mic out of the way. I apologize for my head being in the way. It's just kind of unavoidable sometimes. So you cut in between the marks, these side marks. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting in between this little intersection and this little intersection. So now you have just little slits right here like so. And then you cut down the middle. So obviously you want to leave your yap measurement right there. So that's what we want. So the way this is going to look when our cover is done is this bit right here is going to fall right here. It's kind of hard to see, but it's going to fall just like that. So you have liner, Craftex at the top and the bottom, and that's going to be glued right there. So the next thing we need to do with this slot is we need to angle it a little bit. So you want to cut in at an angle kind of like so. So if you look at this one, this completed Bible, you want a little angle there so that your end paper can be glued to the fly leaf as close as possible to the spine. So you can do different angles, obviously, but I usually do about 3/8 of an inch from here in. So I'll do that here. So now we'll make our cuts. So you essentially want a little triangle cut out there. There we go. That's what our liner looks like. So this slot is done. I don't need to do anything more to this area of the liner. For our liner to be complete, the only thing I have left to do is chamfer, round the corners, which the roundness of your liner cover, the roundness of your liner is going to be the true roundness of your completed cover, because you have to use a larger radius for your cover leather in order for your true radius of your cover to be right. So when you go to figure out what size radiuses to use for your Bibles, you need to figure out how you want your corners to look on a completed Bible. So here I have a pretty small radius because I like the look of the smaller radius. I might transition to a slightly bigger radius because I think it's easier to get really nice pleats on a bigger radius, because on a smaller radius you're really trying to like pack in the pleats in order to make that really tight turn, if that makes sense. So when you go to rebind your Bible, you need to figure out like what radius you want your liner to be, because your liner radius is going to be the true radius of your cover. So all right, so we need to radius our liner here. And I remember the 4, I'm pretty sure my 4 radius is what I used for what I intended here, but I will double check. So let's just double check. Yep, that's right. So in order to cut this really nice, thin, soft lambskin, you need a really sharp knife. And this one has really thin 0.3 millimeter blades in it, which is really good for cutting this really thin leather. I mean, this little X-Acto knife is way thinner than like a traditional one, so it's really good for cutting lambskin. There's really no way to do that without you seeing my head. All right, our liner is officially done. So we've been doing this for about 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and try to get our gluing done. So, I mean, as you know, we're all human, and there's a little bit of entropy when it comes to making Bibles. So usually when I go to figure out like which way my liner goes, whether, this is up on my cover, so whether my liner should go this way or this way, there's always one way that fits a little bit better. So take a minute. I like taking a minute to figure out, which orientation fits better in the cover leather. And one thing I do like doing is taking one of my white pens and marking the center line of my liner, because I have a center line here on my cover, and that will help me really, really easily level my liner to my cover. And this little white mark you're not going to see because it's going to be covered up by the fold over. So let's figure this out. That fits pretty good. Let me just double check this way. I mean, both sides fit pretty good, which is a good thing. Both orientations. But I think this orientation fits a little bit better. So I am going to mark what I want up to be here on my cover, or my liner, excuse me. So the best way to do this really depends on the rebinder. There's one rebinder that is here on YouTube. I forget his channel. I think is it Shook Rebinding? I'll put it in a subtitle. But he will glue like he will initially glue a small section of his cover here, place his liner, and make sure that his liner is exactly where he wants, and then he'll glue the rest. And that's a really good way to do it. That there's a lot of wisdom in doing it that way. Because the issue is once you have all of your glue down, you're kind of on the clock for getting your liner onto your cover. There's kind of a sweet spot with this. The more wet your glue is, the easier it is for you to kind of wiggle your cover to make sure that it's in the right spot. But the more, if you do all of your glue at once, if you just line this whole thing with glue all at once and try to put your liner down, it's going to be really messy, and it's going to be kind of frustrating because you're kind of on the clock. You're kind of saying like, I need to get my liner down in that sweet spot of where my glue is sticky, but it's also wet enough to kind of maneuver around. So I've seen a rebinder like do a little patch glue and initially glue a little patch right here, and that is a good way to do it. What I've done for a bunch of Bibles is I will glue this little section right here and this little section right here exactly where I want it, leaving the other kind of floppy, so that I know I kind of use that as like a through line. I know that area is really well centered in my cover, and then I can just glue each side at my leisure without having to worry about, without having to be on the clock. So that was a good way to do it. I did that for a long time. But recently, on a recent Bible, I did it a little bit different, and I actually like that way the best. So gluing just this section here at the top and the bottom, that's a good way to do it. But the challenge with that is that it's really hard to get your cover really level with this line all the way across. What's easier is to put glue right here in a strip all the way across. Make sure your liner is really level and consistently close to that line all the way across first. And then, once that glue is, you can do it once the glue is dry, or once the glue, while the glue is mostly dry, then glue the rest of your liner. So I did that on my last two Bibles. I'm pretty sure I did that on the BSB, the Horween BSB I did recently, and on my diadem. And that worked really, really well. So I'm going to do that with this cover. That's kind of my long diatribe here. So let's see. I need some brushes, or at least one. So let's go ahead and get started. Some rebinders really like using like a big glue pot like this and just brush their glue out of it. But I like using a bottle because I think I'm able to apply glue more precisely and in a better, more consistently. So one thing you want to be aware of when you go to do this is that you do not want your glue to cross the line into where your fold over is going to be, because any amount of glue that you get above that line is going to make your fold overs more difficult, because glue on leather makes it more stiff. So you want this really consistent up to the line, but not over it. So all the way across here, I'm able to kind of wiggle my cover so that it's consistently touching that mark all the way across. This means that I put my liner onto the glue in that good sweet spot. Got my roller here. So with Horween, you want to be really careful. If there's any gunk on your roller, like any glue, and you roll too hard, you're going to imprint that little glue gunk into your Horween, which is not what you want. Oh yeah, so that line looks really straight all the way across. So that is good to go. So now what I can do, since I know that this is in place exactly where I want it, I'm not going to have an issue with like my liner being all cattywampus at the bottom. So that's why I glue that line first, is because I know that that's in place and it's mostly set, and I can just kind of flap my liner up like this and then glue the rest of my cover without worrying. So that's, what is this? Everyone does it a different way, and this is the way I do it. So now we can go ahead and apply the rest of our glue. This is why I like a glue bottle, is that I can just, it's so much quicker than a little this is why I like a squeeze bottle, is that it's so much quicker than a glue pot. And I can just lay it all down, brush it out. So as you can see, I'm being very careful of my line here. So you want to go perfectly up to your craft text behind that will be your spine. And if you get a little bit of glue, you know, this type of thing, that's okay. All right. We are ready to flop this down. So you want to aim for your mark, your center mark. And you want to adjust, kind of wiggle your nice soft liner up to your line all around. This is why lambskin or sheepskin, Napa sheepskin makes such a good liner, is that it has the flexibility to, you have flexibility to kind of work it where you want to work it. So all we need to do now is do a little bit of rolling, light rolling. And then I'm going to put a couple books on this just to get some consistent weight in order to, as this glue dries, I want it to be super flat. So that is all for today. This looks great. This was how to mark and cut a Bible Rebind liner, and also how to glue it. So our text block is going to fit perfectly in this slot right here. And obviously the next thing is the foldovers. Thank you for watching. This is Ethan from XVD Bibles.